Morning, y'all.
Hey, good morning.
Morning. I'm just chewing on a little breakfast here. Morning, Dee.
Good morning. I had some funky guitar from Buckethead playing in the background, and I had to turn that down before I didn't want to be piping that through the whole thing.
We don't mind.
I don't know what the appropriate soundtrack for this group would be.
Woman with the Chainsaw.
There you go.
Have you ever heard that song? It's just the funniest song.
No, I have
By
not
some
heard that.
local, by some local, group, but it was like 40 years ago, but it's a great song. He wants a woman with a chainsaw. Sorry.
That's my mom. Shotgun and a chainsaw.
I never did like chainsaws or shotguns, so that's not me either.
I'm gonna have to duck out. I'll be back with you guys in just a moment.
Okay.
And Jason, just so you know, I'm going to put up the agenda when we get to whenever we need it. I think I'll just let people come in first and then I'll throw it up.
Okay, perfect. I was just hunting for it on the email chain here.
Read your mind.
Yeah, how do you feel about that, starting with the check-ins and then working our way towards the CAL FIRE?
I think we should ask everybody as they check in what they're going to have as a costume for Halloween.
All right.
And then what we could do is, like Adriana, I think she should be the fortune teller based on what she just said.
Well, I didn't have a costume, so you know what, Dee, maybe that's what I'll do. Give me an idea. My brother was a fortune teller when we were in, I think he was in high school, and he had no costume at that. The last minute he came up with a fortune teller. He just got a cardboard box, like a giant Costco cardboard box, put a little window in it with some curtains, and put like a little wrap around his head. And we had a gumball machine that he used as his orb. It was actually the coolest last minute costume of all time. And he was really embarrassed about it, but no one from his high school recognized him in the costume. So he got away with that too.
If it's still possible, we could turn our annual party that we usually have in December, we could do it at the end of October. And if we could even get together still, I don't know if that's possible. It would be fun to have a costume party. Okay, I'm sorry. We're having new people here, and OBC, I know you, so you can understand me.
Hey Dee, I found the link to your chainsaw song and I dropped it in the chat for you.
Oh my gosh.
I assume that's the one. I just did a quick search on the side.
Well, there couldn't be too many of those. Thank you, dear, and it's nice to see you after all this time.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna play it.
Have a good day, Miles.
Woke up this morning, frozen nearly dead. So goddamn cold I couldn't get out of bed. As I lay there shivering, as cold as I could be, suddenly a revelation came to me. I gotta find me a woman with a chainsaw to spend the winter with me. I gotta find me a woman with a chainsaw, and all night long stole her fire serene.
For those who are just joining, this is our theme song for the Forest Spring group.
I notice I'm stumped. I don't care if she's skinny and I don't care if she's plump. I don't care if she's pretty.
just give it a couple more minutes for people to come in.
But if she's got a chain so she can move right in, I gotta find me a woman with a chainsaw.
It's a great video too, you guys have got
Me, I gotta find me a woman with a chainsaw. And all night long, stoke a fire, yes, well, I treat her kind of gentle, we would never fight. If she went out with other guys, I wouldn't get uptight. She could just do her thing, I could just do mine. For her and me and that machine, we'd get along just fine. I gotta find me a woman with a chainsaw to spend the winter with me. I gotta find me a woman with a chainsaw, and all night long, stoke her fire, yes, I gotta find me a
Okay, we're
woman
done.
with a chainsaw to spend.
There we go.
That was fun.
That's a rocking way to start the meeting right there.
And look at the video, guys. It is hilarious. It is hilarious.
I
Okay.
think it speaks to the specialized personnel we need in this field. You know, it's there's something for everybody out there.
Yeah, they had Queen Elizabeth with the chainsaw, Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
Oh dear. We have got to have some levity in our lives. That's for sure.
That's the truth.
And more chainsaws.
Electric chainsaws.
Right. Maybe we just need the old kind of saws, you know, and we just kind of get those big old, just for the little thinning that we have to do. Okay, I'll stop.
Yeah, it's hard to find somebody with plant ID skills and chainsaw skills. It's a rare set. We need to train them at Santa Rosa Junior College Boot Camp program and then release them in great numbers throughout the state.
Jason, you should do a post-cutting field guide. Here's what a Doug fir looks like on the ground, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, you know, the thinning work, I guess in many ways could lead to, you know, succession change, kind of like wake of post fire. You know, we're mimicking the role of fire. So in theory, you'd see some of those results. I know sometimes when the dozers run through, they sure do prompt some successionary change, good and bad. But yeah, I can go on forever. Adriana, do you want me to kick this one off or?
Yeah, why don't we start? So the agenda says we're gonna do grant stuff first, but we decided it makes way more sense to do round robin first. So we'll start. And usually what I do, Jason, is I just kind of like pick people in the order that they appear on my screen.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is my first attempt to facilitate a forest working group meeting and alleviate some of the burden from Adriana, who's now shifted to San Luis Obispo for graduate school and is off to great things. So maybe we should start with you, Adriana, with our check-in. And when we do this check-in, I think it's incredibly valuable to hear what everybody's up to. And we do try to keep it fairly brief, right? As hard as that is. So should we limit it to 2 or 3 minutes a person and
Yes.
just go around?
Yes.
All
Sounds
right.
good. So okay, I am just kind of getting my feet under me this month, down in my new location, but meeting like faculty and the Fire Safe Council down here and getting situated, which is really nice. As far as my RCD work goes, I think the only thing that I would update about is that I'm working with Ag Innovations Network on a document that is funded by a PG&E grant for Napa County, so our neighbor, not Sonoma, but Napa, on kind of like a playbook for WUI communities that just talks about kind of like the best practices around like preparing and organizing around fire safety in the WUI. So it's been, I think I'm just helping them with the writing. They've already done a bunch of interviews and everything, but it's an interesting, for me, it's a really cool project because it kind of like the task is to synthesize sort of like all that we know at sort of like a high level about what makes successful working communities who are maybe not already fire adapted, but who are trying to become fire adapted, and just like what's the supportive sort of network to make that happen. So we're actually blitzing through it really fast and should be done by the end of the month. So I'll share a copy of it when it's ready to share out for any of you who are interested. But yeah, I think that's my update for now.
Sounds wonderful. Super important information. Thanks for doing that. So let's see, working down the line here, I see BC CAPS coming up next.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. I'm here with the Regional Climate Protection Authority. We work as a kind of a networking body among all the local jurisdictions within the county. Our purview is over a lot of different issues, from decarbonization, electrification, but also focused on working with natural resources and carbon sequestration and forest land issues, looking at those as carbon sinks. I think I don't have anything pressing that I would like to report. The one thing I did want to mention is our CPA is fairly new to this kind of space in thinking about our role in working on, forest land conservation. And so kind of interested here to participate to learn a little bit more about how we could fit in, how we could assist, and wanted to mention specifically that I think we're really interested on working with some of the local jurisdictions on some of the urban forestry issues. And so as those others on this call are involved with those, I think that's an area where we see we could become much more involved. That there's kind of a potential role for us with working with the county and the cities throughout the county on kind of some more some integration of where we could work directly with municipal and city and county staff. So for that, I'll leave it at that, and just glad to be here today. So thanks.
Thanks so much for coming. I mean, we really need this sort of big picture climate level outlook. This is fantastic. Thanks for being here.
Great, pleasure to be here.
Dee, what's new?
Well, I'm just jazzed as well that the Regional Climate Protection Agency is now going to participate at BC. I'm hoping that you can come to all of our monthly meetings and get to know us, and vice versa. I know from the Urban Tree Institute that 15% of California's trees are in the urban areas. And I don't think that counts the WUI areas. I think they were deciding, well, should we be including the WUIs or not? Because that figure she gave me before they had made any decision about WUI. So it's a lot of important tree habitats. So I'm really pleased about that, and I do hope though that you expand into all of the counties. 487,000 acres of forest lands, because that's they comprise over half. Oh, I'm sorry, that was private ownership, 487,000. We have 513,000 acres of forest land in Sonoma County, or we did until how many hundreds of thousands have burned already. So, and that really relates completely with the climate challenges and potential for adding natural carbon sequestration to RCPA's portfolio. So I'm working with Suzanne and Tanya as well. And I know you guys are thinking of putting on an initiative ballot measure. I mean, I'm not sure it'll be an initiative, but a ballot measure regarding climate. And I really want our forest work and needs to be included in that measure. And they invited us to, be engaged right away. So I'm very pleased about that. I think I'll leave it at that. There's so much more, but thank you so much for everyone joining us, and I see some people I don't know, and that's delightful. I look forward to meeting you all.
Absolutely. I think, looking at these two dichotomies as we're actively clearing vegetation and then actively trying to sequester carbon as we're doing it really is quite a thing to wrap your head around there when it comes to vegetation management at large. And I could see no better avenue than this group to try to hone in on that. Barry, welcome to the Forest Working Group.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so I'm with Sonoma Ecology Center, the Restoration Program Manager, and we are working with our crew on a number of projects, mostly post-fire recovery, ecological restoration within the footprint of the two big fires in the Sonoma Valley area. Also doing some work around the Sonoma Developmental Center with some grants, working with various government agencies, and also managing some park and open space properties down in the city of Sonoma area.
Thanks so much. Plenty of work to do. Thanks for doing it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Arthur, what's happening?
Hey, Jason, everybody. I'm Arthur Dawson, historical ecologist with Baseline Consulting. Not a huge amount to report, but still working on the CAL FIRE work, integrating vegetation and fire history for 4 locations in the North Bay. And last month I asked if anybody had any suggestions for an intern, and Caitlin referred me to John Roney at Sugarloaf, so now I've got I think he's just post high school. Chris Com is doing fire research for me in historical newspapers, which can then be mapped. And so that's really good. That was a good step forward. So thank you for that connection. And I'm also working with Mark Tuckman on a project in Marin County. So I was able to map fires there going back to 1859, so extending the CAL FIRE record quite a bit. And so that's been interesting to see how that comes out. A lot of fires on Mount Tam, as you might expect. And then also above Lucas Valley is another sort of hotspot, as well as other places, but those sort of stand out. And that fire that was in Marin a few weeks ago, I think it was above Lucas Valley, so it wasn't a big surprise if you look at the history. And I guess the one last thing to report is I'm going to be giving a talk on fire and resilience in the Miacamas for taking action for living systems on 2 weeks from today, on the 30th. And I can send out the link for that. And that'll be in the evening. Thanks, everybody.
That sounds amazing. I would love to see that talk. And Arthur, where can we access your results? Are they online?
Well, they're still in process. If you guys wanted to take just a moment I've got a draft of the Marin map. I wouldn't spend time explaining much. I would just pop it on screen if you want to see it. But
yeah,
is that all right?
I'd love to tap into what you're getting out there.
I can send it to you. But here, I'll just do a quick screen share.
Cool. We had that little spot fire up on East Peak that they put out pretty quick.
Here's the draft map for Marin. This is just mapping fires of 160 acres or bigger. So, not doing structure fires or urban fires, but just basically what I would call wildfires. And then Mark showed me this neat tool in GIS where you can actually analyze for how many overlapping polygons you have. So top of Mount Tam, you've got 9 to 11 fires have occurred up there in the last 150 years. And then here's that area above Lucas Valley that burned recently. So you can see another hot spot up there. So if you want a good fire-free place to live in Marin, I would say Dillon Beach or Tamales would be a choice.
The fog belt is usually somewhat of a safe zone. That's interesting. I bet they've been heavily suppressed post 1935.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things in Marin is that they had that big fire in Mill Valley in, I think, 1929. And then at that point, they put a fire lookout on Mount Tam, and they were able to start putting out fires very quickly. So that the big fires, there haven't been a whole lot of big fires in Marin, at least not till maybe the 1990s, and that whole period, because they were just jumping on them right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that provides a little hope for today when we're trying to do that as well. Amidst all the complicated paradoxes of putting out fires that are in places that probably should burn at some point. So, all All right, well, I don't want to use any more of the group time, but I can't really share this by email yet because the funder, I haven't finalized with the funder yet. But anyway, I just want to give you guys a glimpse.
Thank you, Arthur. That sort of information is so critical to drive, where we're focusing our work. So thank you for doing that. Caitlin, what's happening?
Hi, everybody. I'm mostly here because I wanted to be part of the conversation about funding opportunities. And what else do I want to say? I think Barry and Ellie will probably cover a lot of what I would say about what the Ecology Center is up to in the forest and wildland space. So I'll just let it rest there. Just want to be part of the conversation about grants.
Yeah, that's going to be a great conversation. Thanks for being here. Jason, I'm sure you're busy as ever.
Yeah, just been actually trying to get caught up on management plan writing. So thankfully there's a little break in grants and other projects, and so I'm just trying to work on individual landowner stuff right now.
Are they going to implementation now, these projects?
What I'm working on right now is writing the management plans that then are a prerequisite for working with some of these cost share programs like EQIP or CFIP, or the North Bay Forest Improvement Program, which has we are also accepting applicants through the end of this month. And so then that's when our batching period for that ends. So yeah, I'm just trying to take advantage of like these 2 weeks before I get another round of that. And contracting for all that kind of stuff took way longer than I ever thought that it would. And it's still kind of dragging on in certain cases. So yeah.
Well, I really think there's something to that cost share match program. I'm hoping we discuss that when our CAL FIRE topic comes up next.
Yeah, I think just in general, that's a good model for incentivizing private investment, matching public funding. So.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Jason. Robert, how are you?
Good. Thanks, Jason. I don't think anything new to report from Permit Sonoma, really. I think we have a tentative planning commission date for the tree ordinance update of November 4th. I want to say helping ag and open space with CEQA for some of their conditionally approved projects for their veg management program. I'm trying to think what else is new. I've assisted parks writing some forestry prescriptions for some of their fuel reduction projects. So I know those are starting to go into implementation right now. So I think, yeah, that's all I have to report over at Permit Sonoma side.
All right, fantastic. Thanks. Yeah, it seems like some of these forest thinning prescriptions are really getting honed in. Like I was really impressed from the Ag and Open Space Saddle Mountain RFP that went out that integrated a ton of fuel management BMPs into their fuel thinning project. So I think we're making big strides.
Jason, Robert, rather, could we ask to see those RFPs? That sounds encouraging.
I can share the prescriptions that I wrote. I don't have copies of the RFPs for those.
But that sounds good. That sounds good, Robert. Please let us know how we can get those.
And you can, anybody can sign up to receive RFPs from the county. They all go through a centralized county hub. So if you sign up, you'll get all kinds of bizarre RFPs from the county, but you'll also get some ones that might be relevant.
Throwing all these links in the chat boxes I'm seeing people do is a wonderful way to share. Mr. Fred Ufred, how are you?
I'm good. It's been an exciting time. I'm going to be going out this afternoon and checking on BMPs for the upcoming rain this weekend. So I'm actually about to drive. I'm going to have to leave early and buy a truckload of hay. Nothing to report other than I'm keen on knowing about funding opportunities, and I'm trying to develop better relationships inside the JC. There's a lot of non-communication going on at times. And I've got sort of an idea for management plans that are kind of meta management plans. I see a lot of landowners getting hung up in it's got to be a California cooperative management plan in order to get cost share, and we don't know how to do anything else. And I've run into a number of landowners that don't care about cost share. It's not a cost share situation so much. They have 500 acres of oak woodland outside of Napa or something like that, and they don't even fit the qualifications for a management plan being cost shared. So what are we going to do? And that's the meta question. And I'm working with another forester, trying to put together reasonable plans for them, but their questions are different than other people's questions.
Yeah, and when you blow it up on a watershed level, you're going to have that sort of resource disparity as a common phenomena. So maybe if we can link these people together as, communities and look at where we can do the cost sharing, that could be a good solution,
Yeah, I've had a number of clients when I say, and you can't make more than 900,000, and they kind of giggle and they look at their winery down the hill, but they have 600 acres of oak woodland above them, and so we need something for them. And I think you're right. It's looking at the heterogeneity of the landscape. I think all the programs are great, but we just need to keep going.
Yeah, and on that, spreading straw, I hope you're able to find some weed-free sterile straw, and if so, share the link on the chat box there.
And when I say straw, I mean hay.
Okay, good.
Okay.
We had that backwards. When you say hay, you mean straw.
When I say hay, I mean straw, and
Yeah,
maybe it's going to be rice straw.
Rice straw.
Yeah.
Got some of these post-fire sites with all that wheat coming up, and then it just stays there, standing fine fuel for the next 5 years, and costs who knows how much money.
Just a little thing, but when the forests burn, they're still forests. It's just that they start having a whole new bunch of species. I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah. See you guys. Succession. I think that's a good transition over to Stephen Swain.
So we're in the process of hiring our new fire smart landscape coordinator. And I have been so busy with my head stuck in the sand that I haven't even made the last couple. Hey, speaking of which, Robert, do you have the link? How far down the line is the Sonoma County tree ordinance? Do you know?
We're going to Planning Commission November 4th. That's not like an adoption. It's really more of informing the commissioners about the status of the project. I would say we'll probably go to the board next year with some more policy, like actually drafted. We had a meeting in May that I think kind of the gist that we got from the meeting was to get more data about what the current state of efficacies of existing tree policies are. And so we're partnering with Cooperative Extensions, Mike Jones, to do some more analytical work, kind of seeing what changes in the forested landscape there's been, and seeing how we can, what the causes of some of those changes may be, whether it's vineyard conversion, development changes, fire, right? And seeing what the effects of our policies have been. I would say next year is kind of where we're looking, ballpark early right now, barring fires, floods, what have you.
So Mike Jones
that
is
could
involved in
potentially
that.
delay.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
How do I stay up on that? Do I sign up on a mailing list or something along those lines? I was involved.
Yeah, we have a link. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. That'd be awesome.
And Robert, how does the tree ordinance pertain to the general plan policies that I believe are going to be rewritten someday? But I always have thought that the general plan sections would be more comprehensive than a tree ordinance. How do those relate?
That is a fantastic question. I think the hope is that we're future-proofing the tree ordinance. Its official title is a comprehensive tree ordinance. But I mean, the general plan is still in its planning phase. I would say I think we're seeking more funding on how to do the general plan update, but we have some very specific funding for the tree ordinance update. And the board has identified the tree ordinance update as a high priority. But I think the idea would be that the tree ordinance could then inform some of the, like, basically what we can't address in the actual like policy development of the tree ordinance. We could then maybe take some of those topics and then apply that to the general plan update in like the open space or like the environmental justice portions of the general plan update. So that's the hope right now, at least.
Look at these cross-pollination discussions happening here on behalf of the Forest Working Group. I mean, thank God for this group. I hope heritage trees land somewhere on the radar on there. I just got to get my 2 cents in.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. I guess the last little bit of update is I tried to do the burn of the junipers, but we can't. The fire season started so early this year that we were unable to find a window where we could work with the local fire agency. So maybe next year, maybe later this year. I don't know how it's going to work. I still need to talk with Marshall Turbeville to see where we are on all that. He's been understandably a bit busy, and this is not the top of his priority list. So we're just going to have to be patient, I think. Okay, that's all I have.
That'd be some great information. Thanks, Stephen. I was talking with some post-fire folks recently who stood by and watched the wildfires burn through eucalyptus groves. And they were describing the sounds of the eucalyptus catching and burning and throwing the embers and starting spot fires all over the place. Nothing like that firsthand knowledge in the event. Okay, Kim Batchelder, how are you?
Morning, folks. How you doing, Jason? Thanks for facilitating today. I just have a short description of some of the things that we've been working on lately. Saddle Mountain Open Space Preserve, Fred has helped us we've been looking at a salvage harvest out there. I think I've reported out on that several times. We're inching our way towards that success. But we do have a good prescribed burn plan for that property, and have established several of the burn units. In the meantime, we'll be doing some shaded fuel breaks on that property that Monica Del Martini has designed, and been working with Fred as well as Roger Sternberg. But then let me see, on Hillsburg Ridge Open Space Preserve, that was a property that I've helped develop the management plan for, and worked pretty closely with the various fire professionals in that area, including that was the first time I met Marshall Tuberville 15 years ago. And so we had designed this plan, and now the city has adopted or has been doing goat grazing along the preserve's edge, which has been really quite beneficial to a good use of that tool. We're just trying to figure out how do goats impact serpentine vegetation, and what kind of prescriptions would be appropriate, and are the goats truly going to have an impact on that type of vegetation, positively from a fire standpoint or negatively from a biodiversity standpoint. So we're going to have a good discussion with that about them. And then a project that I'm working on lately is what we call a permitted use request, and it's a review of a management plan for Rips Redwoods up in the western part of the county. And it's a beautiful property, about 1,600 acres, that has a conservation easement over it. And the management plan is being reviewed by our staff. And so it's really interesting to see kind of their innovative thoughts about how to manage for old growth redwood forests, how to establish some shaded fuel breaks along road corridors, prescription fires further down the road. And then something I haven't seen before is a green burial proposal to ag and open space as a value added, and that's something that we'll still have to discuss with them. But I thought it was a very unique way to have some type of income in a low impact way, and yet also have a culturally significant input to local folks in the area. So anyway, very interesting projects that I'm working on right now, but that's all I can share right now.
Sounds like it. Thanks for sharing. I mean, looking at that effect of livestock grazing on the serpentine, what a need for research there. I mean, we did some active work on Montini there in the Wooey, where we did spot mowing, and then right next to our mowing plots, we had livestock grazing with a bunch of sheep and a couple goats peppered in. And you can really see the difference there. I mean, next to no thatch. But then looking at, like, you know, mineral deposition there and sensitive serpentine habitats, that the only reason they aren't overtaken with invasives is because they don't have a lot of nutrients out there. You know, what are the effect of livestock? It's awesome. That's why we need people like Stephen Swain and active land managers logging all this stuff. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Mason, we haven't met. Welcome if you're new. If you're not, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, well, everyone, I am new to this meeting, to this group. Yeah, I just started as an AmeriCorps fellow for Gold Ridge RCD and Fire Safe Sonoma. So yeah, just started that this week, basically. And yeah, I was invited to this meeting just to get, you know, a lay of the landscape here. Again, yeah, I'm just new to these organizations and new to the area, so I really am just trying to soak everything in.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Mason. And I just want to say, for those of you who met Kaylin Notch, she was in Mason's position previously, working with Roberta and Brittany in our office, toggling between the RCD and the Fire Safe Council. So lots of outreach and community support work is basically the purpose of Mason's position, and also for him to get exposure to the field and industry and see which way he'd like to point himself after his fellowship. Is that right? Is that how you would describe it, Mason?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I'm not thinking too much after the fellowship quite yet because it just started, but you know, I will be.
And that's an AmeriCorps Grizzly Corps member program?
Yeah, Grizzly Corps.
That's a really good program. For those of you who don't know about it, I think it's an amazing resource out there. So thanks for being a part of it. I think you're in a really interesting seat to get a ton of knowledge here. So should be a very valuable experience. Judy Rosales, how are you?
You're on mute.
So we need these CWPP updates.
We have a lot going on right now, so I'm going to just narrow the focus to our vegetation management grant program. We're filing a notice of exemption for Fort Ross Road. We're waiting for that to go through. We're waiting for Matt Green, who should be able to start work, I think, next week, getting our bid packets together and getting moving on that. One of the biggest things that we're working on right now is getting landowner agreements from all of our landowners up here. Every meeting we have, we bring agreements with us to take. We direct people to our website to fill them out, whether they're involved in our grant project or not, because we all will be working together. We're working on collaborating with all of our communities. We started out with a roundtable in July with Brook and Shanti, including, Sonoma Land Trust, Wildlands Conservancy, the Muniz Ranches, the 3 ranches, and Timber Cove. Now we're extending that to include Annapolis and Kashaya. And Marshall is doing a series of meetings. He did one in Cazadero in August. He did one along Fort Ross Road at PPI, Padma Sambhava Peace Institute, last Saturday. And they're all the same presentations. what we can do before the next fire, and he discussed how recent wildfires are burning and what we can do before the next wildfire occurs. He showed some presentations, some videos from the 2020 Wallbridge fire that were very impactful. I mean, just showing areas that are reminiscent of Fort Ross Road and how one little spot fire just took off. And then he showed it a couple of times because he wanted people to really get that. He'll be doing the same presentation in Timber Cove on Saturday. And that one will be geared a little bit more also outside towards coastal permits, you know, because much of the work that needs to get done there is in the coastal zone. And I know that our MAC meeting last night discussed the coastal zone and how we could streamline the coastal permit process. I did not get an update on that yet this morning, but so that's pretty much in the works. So all of these meetings, as I said, we're focused on getting all of the landowners on board. So as we're moving forward with our vegetation management grant program, we also got a chipper from that grant. And we've been talking among ourselves with our insurance representative, and now we're meeting with our local contractor who will store, do the maintenance checks, and operate that chipper. And we're going to be basically hammering out how is this community chipper going to work within our community? How, who's going to operate it? The Coast Ridge Community Forest is paying for insurance, will be paying for the maintenance itself, but Charles Hope Construction will be doing all of the maintenance checks. And so we've been talking about this for quite a while, and I think we're coming to a pretty good understanding of how we can make that work, how we can make that chipper available to the communities along Fort Ross Road, the 3 subdivided ranches, Navarro, Wallala, and Seaview. Timber Cove has their own chipper, so we're also talking to them about some of the volunteer work that's going to be done with these chippers in addition to grant work and grant project maintenance. It really turned out to be a pretty big endeavor getting this chipper, but we feel good about it. We think we've come up with a pretty good plan, and hopefully it can act as a model for other people who are getting equipment. So I think right now, that's about it. We're working with a couple of vineyard owners on, one of them is getting their forest management plan. 2 of them will be filing the North Bay Forest Improvement Program for that grant. Matt Green's working with them. I don't think we'll make it in time for this deadline, but we're trying to bring in more of the vineyard owners in this Fort Ross area. Some of this based on the conversation we had last week about outreach to vineyard owners. So, and they seem to be pretty receptive about wanting to get involved. So as we look at our planning, trying to get these hundreds of landowners on board and get signed agreements from them, it's kind of like herding cats, but it's coming together. And like I said, we've got our Fort Ross Road project pretty much sewed up, but if we want to work outside, and outside the area, we need to get all of these landowners along here on the coast tied in. So we have an outreach plan for that, which I hope to share with the group next month. And I think I'll end there.
Thank you so much for explaining, for kind of walking us through that from a higher level there. I mean, it all starts with access, right? If you don't have access, none of this work happens. And doing the outreach can get really time consuming and really expensive. So having models to do that effectively is critical. And then when we're looking at getting rid of this material, it's half the battle. And God, I have to say, chippers are about as scary as it gets and very dangerous. So, we've heard great feedback from the chipper programs out there, but I worry about volunteers working with these big dangerous chippers.
Jason,
Yeah.
Well, you know, I like,
I just know we're running short.
Yes.
I mean, we're running long on time, and we have this other really important topic. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, yeah, let's move it along. It looks like we're getting down to the last of them. Ron Rolari, how are you? Oh, you're muted, Ron.
There, you got me?
Gotcha.
Okay. So I'm a director with the Sonoma RCD, and as Jason probably knows, that we're putting off our next week meeting a month, so we got a little delay. But it's interesting, Judy. Are you talking about getting the word out? I think the grant that we got that we're working on is for outreach, and we're talking Gualala and up the ridge there. And so anyway, I hope we can help out with that, your work there.
Sharing access and permission forms, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll find out when we have our meeting. I've been trying to get up to my property in Trinity and Weaverville, and you can't go up there. I've been trying for 2 months, and they evacuated every town around, and all the firefighters, a lot of them are staying in Weaverville, so I have no place to stay, even though I own a house there. But yeah, the fires are up north are really taking a lot of personnel, and we're letting them do it, But again, chippers, how much does it cost for a bomber? They're a lot of maintenance, and they're real dangerous. It's like, but we need a competent contractor to maintain those chippers. You just can't rent them out to people. They're the big ones. They are dangerous. I'll double underline that one.
Yeah.
I have nothing else to say until next time.
All right, thanks, Ron. Brooke, what's new out in Jenner?
Hey everyone, good to see you. Brooke Edwards, Sonoma Coast Regional Director for the Wildlands Conservancy. We have a lot going on out here. We've implemented about 134 acres of shaded fuel break maintenance work through a state coastal conservancy grant that we received this summer. So we just had great tree tenders go out and basically do maintenance on 134 acres of established shaded fuel break. So now we have that much really ready for Marshall to come out and burn. So if we have a good weather window this fall, we'll definitely get some good fire on the ground and work on further fuel reduction in that 134 acres. So that is good news. The other thing is we did get a grant from the Open Space District through the PG&E funds to purchase equipment. So what you guys were just talking about was very pertinent. We're looking at purchasing a Kubota skid steer with a masticating head. That would allow us to keep some of this shaded fuel break maintenance work in-house and get it done by staff, which would drastically reduce the cost of getting this work done. And then we could kind of do it on our own time instead of relying on the grant cycles and hoping that we bring money in. So this will really empower us to maintain our shaded fuel breaks. Along with that, we need to work towards finding some kind of equipment sharing agreements. And I think I've reached out to a number of you. If you have any experience with this, I know Judy was talking about the chipper. Obviously, the chipper is very dangerous. Imagine what a masticator could do to an individual. So we're trying to figure out how we would be able to share that with others. And most likely it would look like something where the only people that could operate it obviously would be trained up, but they would probably be like volunteer fighters that are covered under fire department insurance. Renting this out to just organizations with no experience and no insurance, doesn't really look like it's really a non-starter. So anyone that has ideas on that, please feel free to reach out with me. If you have shared equipment like a masticating head or a skid steer with a masticator, we'd like to hear about that. We're also scheduled to have a shaded fuel break workshop September 25th, Saturday. And this is where we're going to head out to our East Ridge shaded fuel break. This is where we've had our workshops out there before. So if you've been out there, we're going back to the same area where we'll be able to show folks 3 different treatment types: mastication, chipping, lob and scatter, and then also the effects of using prescribed fire out there. So we've worked with Marshall to burn about 50 acres of that 100-acre East Ridge. So they'll be able to see a variety of different treatment types out there. We'll go through the process of how we developed and established that shaded fuel break. We have 16 people signed up so far. And so usually that's a really good chance to come out, talk to other folks, agency personnel, and do some networking while seeing, what we did on the ground. And it's great to hear feedback from others that have done this type of work while we're out there, to hear about, what has worked for them. They're working with different forest stands, different densities, and it's just a good opportunity to share information. The other last thing I wanted to mention was recently we've been having some troubles with PG&E. We have the major power line goes through the Jenner Headlands, the Monterey to Timber Cove 60 kV power line. And last month they came up with a crew, really didn't announce themselves, and they destroyed about a mile and a half of our roads. They bulldozed about 30 rolling dips and just absolutely destroyed our roads that we had fairly well shaped, shedding water off. And so I called up my contact at PG&E and they said, wow, that's so sorry that happened. You'll have to file a claim. I said, that's absolutely not good enough. And so I reached out to all the environmental regulators that scrutinize our road work when we do our THPs, gave them a summary of what occurred out there. And suddenly I was getting phone calls from higher ups at PG&E. Long story short is they're up there right now repairing the road, putting all the rolling dips back in, removing all of the loose sediment. They created huge amounts of loose, fluffy powder. They didn't do any water. There was no compaction. They absolutely destroyed our roads. And so in reaching out to Maggie Robinson over at the Water Quality Control Board, there is, I believe she holds workshops on getting PG&E contractors trained up to the guidebook for forest and ranch roads. And I think that should be absolutely mandatory for any one of PG&E's contractors that's out there, because what they did to our road, they're probably doing throughout the county and throughout this region. And so I just wanted to let you guys know, do not let PG&E get away with this. You have to hold them accountable. Right now they're doing this road work, repairing the road. That's probably going to be like $30,000, $40,000 worth of work if you add it in all of our times easily. So if anyone's familiar with successes with PG&E to try to get them, or at least a road contractor, certified for the guidebook for forest and ranch roads, I'd like to hear about that too. I'm trying to pressure as much as I can on my end on PG&E. It looks like we've developed a relationship where we have a good contractor. I have contacts at PG&E that will then respond to my concerns. And so I just want to say, don't let PG&E get away with this type of work. They'll absolutely destroy our streams with all this fine sediment getting in there.
Thanks so much, Brooke. Yeah, I mean, these are big things. When you get into heavy equipment, you sure can cause a ton of disturbance. And, looking at the smaller skid steer there, probably much less of an impact on the terrain. So it comes down to the equipment operators. But, looking at this, I want to really dive in deeper, but we're running out of time. So I think we should shift over to this CAL FIRE conversation. I think Ellie just nominated to forego her time, and I know Carol Leone is going to be kind of pivotal in this conversation.
Wait, Jason, we have to hear from everybody first.
Oh, okay. I think we've covered, I only have Ellie, Carol Leone, and a 707 on my screen.
Yeah, we need to hear from everyone, but if they can do 2-3 minutes. That'd be
Yeah,
good.
I can do a 15 to 30 second. I want to let Caitlin give a quick summary of her funding information first and foremost, though. So the only thing I want to add to what the other two SEC people said is with our grant, Resilient Landscapes Coalition for Defensible Space Education, we're going to be giving a presentation to Safer West County September 28th from 6 to 8, and we can put the promotional information out later. And then also Oakmont is a large HOA community, 3,000 homes, 5,000 residents, and they have hired us to help them with all of their defensible space and forest management. And Jason Wells, I'm going to talk to you about whether or not we can get a forest improvement program for a large community like that. It seems like it would be great to do. So I just want to, put that out there. And then I'm done.
Okay, Dee had a great suggestion that if you're wanting to get additional information across, the comment or chat box is a great way to do that. And I want to make sure I check on everybody. The number 707-293-6628. Is there anybody on
Good
that
morning.
line?
This
Oh.
is
Oh, hi,
good morning.
Jill.
Can you guys you guys can hear me? Yeah, this is Jill representing Gualala River Watershed Council. I want to quickly compliment Dee on her op-ed piece that was in the Sunday paper. If you didn't see it, you might want to find that online, talking about mostly about community wildfire protection plans and the potential of putting in some sort of sales tax money for veg management, as she mentioned earlier. For the council, at this point, doing a little bit of fee-for-service work, and I believe that is mostly stream reach monitoring. That's kind of what's up.
All right. Thanks so much, Jill, for everything you do. And let's see, last but certainly not least, Kara Leone.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'll be super brief now because I think that most of what I'll be talking about, we'll be talking about. So I can kind of cede my time in the interest of moving forward.
Okay, fantastic. I think I'll do the same. I'll just forgo my time. I'm basically trying to have our outfit here at WRA use less herbicide and more manual and chemical control for invasives. And our Dynamo Virginia Mahachek is heading to Colorado for a big fire conference where she's going to be using video from Lisa McKaylee and Dee and some other, Valerie from the RCD, to talk about the fire impacts we've experienced in Sonoma County and basically providing these really useful flow charts for what it takes to get funding and then what it takes to have the work carried out. And I was really impressed. So hopefully she'll be able to share that with the group later on. And I think that's a good segue over to our fire funding and grant conversation. And Ellie wanted me to make sure Caitlin had the time to convey some of her recent updates. So Caitlin, do you want to start this off?
Sure. I actually don't know that much, but I went and found out a few things. I know a lot of us are pretty deflated about the results of the CAL FIRE funding decisions because they only funded one project in Sonoma County. And I'm sure, I don't even know how many were submitted from Sonoma County, but a lot. So, where do we go next? What do we do about that? I don't know the answer, but I did ask some smart people about it. And I sent what a couple of them said to the listserv in an email. I didn't get specific response from Yvonne Shu, who I think actually can be really helpful on this topic, maybe in a sort of ongoing way. It might be worth just checking in with her on a regular basis. But I do have to leave for an 11 o'clock meeting, so I don't have a lot that I can stay for. But what I gathered from what Carol said and what Misha said is that they're not seeing a lot in the very near term. There's a ton of money rolling through from the feds and the state, but it has to get packaged up into existing grant programs. And that hasn't happened yet, and that can take many months. And honestly, I think that's what I have. So I'm curious what other people think and what other people have heard. And I hope that some of my SEC colleagues can take notes for me.
Okay, wonderful. Dee?
Yes, thank you, Caitlin, for finding out what you can. It's been difficult to find out what all the monies are and which pockets they've been put in at the county, how much of those have been spent on what is the next use of all of those funds. We all need to know this, where they are, who the contact is, what's the plan for spending them. So you say, Caitlin, that that there's many months of, of what? Of probably deciding on what's happening, and then we aren't involved. And no, that is not acceptable. We need the public to know what is happening with the hundreds of millions of dollars coming into Sonoma County for wildfire suppression and prevention. I know that the county is developing a ballot measure, and the last ballot measure was primarily suppression. We need suppression. We need firefighters, more of them. They need to be well paid. They need engines and engine houses, but we need fire prevention as much so that we don't have to spend it all on suppression all the time. And where is our voice? We are not being heard. We've asked to be heard, and we're still not being heard. So it's a big problem. And when we realize that so many of these grants were not funded, and you can surmise that the CAL FIRE said to themselves, well, look at all that money that's going into Sonoma County. We don't need to give it to Sonoma County. And not only that, but the county did not, to my knowledge, maybe Carleone knows more, did not consult with CAL FIRE on any of the BRIC money, and maybe not any of the other money that they have. How about coordinating and collaborating so that everyone is doing their best not to duplicate, but not to omit an important, all the important things that are going on. We just need more communication. Somebody has to become responsible for that at the county, and that's not being done. So there's my 2 minutes for you.
Yeah, I think in this one, we don't have to limit it to 2 minutes. I mean, I think in this one, we want to dive in deep and have this conversation where I don't know of any other venue where we do have such a spectrum of information on so many levels. So I think this is a great opportunity to really take a deeper dive and see how we can fix some of these issues.
Well, and I shouldn't have just vetted. I should have then said, and here's what we should do, or here's some ideas. Let's come together on what we should do. Because we have county reps here. We have RCPA reps here. We have RCDs, nonprofits, individual landowners. We have a large voice if we decide to use it. So how can we be effective in helping the county make the right decisions? We have lots of information. I forgot Kim. Come on, guys, we need to come up with some suggestions or find out who we can meet with to make those suggestions. So I would recommend starting off with the chair of the Board of Supervisors, for example. Let's ask Linda Hopkins, where are all the funds coming from Where did they go in the county? What has been spent so far? What is left? What are the plans for what is left? Who to contact for affecting a change or, a conversation about those funds? That is our future for our 513,000 acres of forest land in Sonoma County. We are not going to get these big piles of money again if we don't spend them righteously. And of course, the equity factor, of course, there's a whole bunch of things. But anyway, I would start with, getting Linda Hopkins to meet with us as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's some great big picture context. This is exactly where we need to go. I mean, I can just say that I know that every step of this work along the way is incredibly expensive. And right now we're having this conversation with no one paying for it. So we're taking our own time to help to try to orchestrate this.
Right.
And,
if we spend all this money right, we're going to get more, because we're going to need a whole bunch more than we've got now. But we won't get them if we don't, get our act together.
And suppression is incredibly expensive. So, we've seen on a federal level that we know that's not the direction we need to go. So, prevention is the most progressive way for us to use these funds, and we can't afford to duplicate things. We can't afford to waste these critical funds.
We have to take risks, and I'm going to take a risk right now. Of course, house hardening is really important. Yes, defensible space is really important, but our forests are equally important, and I'm really quite frustrated that they aren't being seen that way.
I can completely relate. Adriana?
Yeah, I've just been thinking about this and I've been feeling curious to know if there's like the county or the larger community, or I think some of I feel like the county is what I'm wondering about. Sorry, I feel really like I'm not being eloquent at all right now, but I'm just talking off the cuff. But I've just been wondering, like, is there anyone who would like to learn more about all the projects and like all the initiatives that we talk about every month at the Forest Working Group? Is there a way that all these conversations that we have can be informing kind of like people who need to know about it? And I just kind of wondering if there's like, if we can build a communication pathway. I mean, the conversations we have every month here are really great, but they kind of I don't know how far they go beyond our group. And so just wondering if there's like a way to get more of this to the people who don't know about it, who need to know about it. That's my question I'm going to put out there.
That's a wonderful point. I saw Carol Leon's mute come off, so.
I would just like to suggest that this is really what the CWPP process is supposed to roll up, is these kinds of global conversations. So if we can use that to launch a forum where everybody who's writing grants gets together into the same room at the same time, maybe quarterly, however we decide to do that. My sense is that other people don't share with us what they're doing either. Nobody's sharing with anybody. Everybody's off doing their own thing, and so it's frustrating all around. It's not just the evil county here that is responsible for all of the wrongs that are happening. Everybody's doing this. I didn't know that the Sonoma Valley Collaborative was putting in another grant. I think it's great that they did, but I didn't know anything about it. So, where is the forum for doing all that? And that's what the CWPP was created for, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of input, into that document or that process. And I think that maybe we need to build a better system for people pinging into that process. And that'd be great. I think it would help a lot.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that you're a part of these conversations, Carolina. I've heard you say multiple times, we don't want to silo off this stuff and duplicate our efforts. So, conversations like this are imperative if we're going to prevent that from happening. And Jason Wells, I saw your hand go up first.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thoughts that I'm having just from hearing people right now is that it seems like there's just a lot of confusion in terms of, in the last 6 months, there have been 3 different funding sources that have kind of come into reality, right? So like there was a CAL FIRE grant process that just happened for their forest fire prevention and their forest health grants. There was the county came out with their vegetation management grants. And then there's also, and the only one that's really unclear to me, there is this FEMA related monies that supposedly is coming to Sonoma County. And I'd love to hear more about that as well. But I do think that there's just confusion in terms of like, from just what I'm hearing here with some of the anger and like where the county fits in with all of this sort of stuff. I mean, like, there's just different levels to things, right? So there's the CAL FIRE stuff and how come we didn't get more money from CAL FIRE? That's a question that we could spend a conversation on, and we could talk more about like, well, what were the proposals that went out there? And we could actually evaluate what was the real project readiness? How did they fit into that sort of grant? But that's getting muddled because there were also people now are angry about, well, I didn't get county money. Well, that was a different process, and there's a different subset in that grant. And I just feel like with all these different grants happening at the same time, people are getting confused as to what it is you're talking about. And very often in the conversations that I've been having with people in the last 6 months or so, people are jumping back and forth in the same sentence when they're talking about CAL FIRE versus county grant. And that alone is going to create confusion, is going to make a situation where you might be misinterpreting or getting wrong information because you're jumping back and forth between 2 different programs. The FEMA grants, I would love to talk about that. And I think that we should just have like a separate meeting and like, let's just talk about this FEMA thing. And as far as I know, that's not a reality yet. Like that's money that's coming down the pipeline, and we should have that chat and we should talk about, what's coming and what those funds are for. But I kind of assumed from the emails that went out that we were going to talk about sort of reflection on the grant processes that just happened. And one thing that popped into my head is that recently Environmental Resource Solutions reached out to a number of different folks who were funded through the county specifically. And I was not able to make it to that meeting because I had a previous thing that I had to go to. But that's something actually I would love to see the county do, is like, could we get a meeting with all of the county grantees and discuss what their projects were and figure out what can we do in the future to add value to those projects that have been funded, right? Like what could separate groups that are available right now be looking at the monies that have been allocated right now, see what, there was also in this county grant process, there was what was applied for, then there was what was funded. And oftentimes those were not the same thing. And so there's a lot of like tweaking that's going on right now with the county funds. So at some point I'd like to have a conversation of like, okay, well, what were the projects that actually were funded and what are we doing? And how can we look at that and think, how are we going to maintain this kind of stuff? Or how can we, okay, well, you're funded for a shaded fuel break on such and such road. How do we start doing outreach? How do we start connecting people who are just outside that project area? How do we focus our efforts to expand the benefits of what we've funded in the county? I'd like to have that conversation at some time. And from what I heard from the one person that I talked to about the environmental resources meeting, it was way more high level and just like sort of a meet and greet and drink some sodas and whatnot, you know, like, so I'd like to have a real conversation in a meeting at some point, just to do the add value kind of thing. Anyway, I'll stop chatting, but that's something that I've definitely noticed, just overall confusion from having too many different grants that are very closely related. Yeah.
Same intention in mind, with a lot of resources required just to package these grants, huge investments going in with not the return. So you can see how this would create a feeling of resentment or being upset about having these resources fall flat. And I think, thank you for pointing out the clear distinction between them and how to really, you know, repurpose this energy towards getting to our end goal. And
you can have a good grant that doesn't get funded, you know, like,
oh yeah,
like reviewing grants is really tough, and looking at different applicants and having to rank them and having to come up with a clear-cut guideline system for ranking projects. And sometimes that doesn't capture everything, you know, and like, that's really tough. So it's not easy to be the grading side on grants. And that doesn't mean that you can't just look at your project and shore it up and clean up the edges and take the next 6 months and make your project even sharper and resubmit it. And it might still be a good project.
You put all the work into getting that grant content together. Now don't lose it.
Right.
You know, but I think this is why we need a CWPP and Carol Leone to help direct these efforts, or somebody at the top to help make sure we're heading in the right direction. And I've been seeing people come and go. Kim, did you still want to talk? And no, good. Okay, then we'll head over to Brooke.
Well, actually, I had a question for Kim, so maybe we'll get him to talk a little bit later. I just want to say, you know, one of the things with these grant applications is that we don't get any kind of scorecard. We know that we turn in these applications and they get ranked on certain different categories. We've done that with the Cal Fish and Wildlife FRGP grant before, and they return a scorecard and they let you know, this is where you guys lacked information or a more fleshed out project design. If you want to be more competitive, these are the areas that you need to improve. Maybe there needs to be more collaboration in terms of fuels reduction, fuels reduction type work. So, you know, CAL FIRE, I've turned in many applications, and all I get is, you know, sorry, you know, you didn't get awarded the grant, but there is no feedback. What did we do good? What did we do bad? How can we get better in the future? So I think all the grants at some level would be good to have that feedback, so that we can at least work on our gaps, or work on better collaboration between neighbors, where we can put together projects into a bigger project, and that raises our priority. So I think that would be helpful. And then I guess my other thought is, you know, the vegetation coordinator position that will be running through the open space district. It seems like this would be a good role for them to help coordinate all of our activities and at least provide that feedback that I think everyone's talking about. And so that's my question to Kim. How do you see that position fitting in with kind of what we're asking for, Kim?
No, I think that's excellent feedback, and especially in terms of the grants and how you measure up. You know, just speaking on behalf of the grant program, there were 95 proposals worth about $8 million in the first round, and so there's nuances to every proposal, and so we learned a lot during that first process as far as a panel of experts who gave their opinion on how each grant applicant was fulfilling the mission of the original grant proposal. So I think it's really good feedback to that. It's really valuable to provide feedback to any applicant who wants to improve their chances of getting a grant through our program or through CAL FIRE. I've just been hearing anecdotally about the CAL FIRE grant and the collaboration that was able to get funding, and how they've been hearing constantly that one of the key factors for that support that CAL FIRE has provided has been communications from the get-go about what they're trying to do and getting it done on the ground. And so that communications up front with CAL FIRE, not just going in with this great proposal that has a lot of community input and so forth, and then saying, oh, why didn't we win? Well, how much communication was there ahead of time with CAL FIRE? How much were they participating? So they're actually on the hook saying, yeah, you gave us this great feedback when we designed this proposal. So now we don't get the proposal, we don't get the funds. What gives it that? So there's a little bit more accountability. From the standpoint of the veg management position, I really think there is a lot of opportunity to work with the Forest Working Group and all other community groups, because that's what I was seeing in the first round, is that the grants that were awarded had like a stellar community leader that was able to get landowner buy-in to whatever was being proposed, and had their ducks in a row as far as CEQA goes. Communities that didn't quite get what CEQA was, what a notice of exemption qualification was, versus a larger project that needed more surveys and things like that, using a CalVTP or something like that. Those projects are the next tier up. So we have to take all this stuff into consideration and how to apply it best. And I think there's criteria that should be really clear and transparent, so that everyone understands what is the bar that we need to meet to get a project approved. And then accountability and transparency, that whatever grants are approved, we show those out. And so here's some great examples of how a community organized their efforts and eventually received funding. Or if they didn't receive funding, these are the steps they need to take in order to have a more competitive proposal. But it really is a difficult situation for a grantor or a grantee to understand all that goes on. I'd really hoped to have Tom Connect join us today, but he wasn't able to respond. I think there's a lot of other people who have good experience, both on the grantee and the grantor. I think that would be valuable to form a panel. This was we made this decision to go in this direction on Monday, that let's have a discussion about why or why not the proposals were funded. So I think it behooves us to have a panel of people who represent the nonprofit foundations, to the public agencies, to the county, to be able to share what their perspective is on different proposals.
Yeah, thanks so much. I just want a quick thing on Tom Connect. He's connected to Napa, Lake, Sonoma County. He's representing that whole area. From what I've heard from the land managers in Napa, they're losing out on grants to Lake County too, with a disadvantaged income disparity. So, if that's going to be a factor and we're seen as the affluent county, what about match funds? What about using the resources we have to get traction? And with that, I'll pass it back to Dee, and then Judy's to follow.
Why don't we go with Judy first, because I've had some time, but I do want to get back to me after Judy.
All right, thanks, Dee.
I would just like to point out two things. I'd like to kind of reflect on what Kim just said about CAL FIRE. I spoke with Tom Connect. He was very open with me about our grant. And one of the things he said, you really need to work with Marshall. Come back to me, work with Marshall, and we'll take your proposal and we will rank it and show you how to make it better for the next round of funding. So I found that very encouraging. He thought we had a great project. He liked the long-term vision of the project. and offered to work with us. But you got to start with Marshall. The other thing I just want to add regarding the county vegetation management grant, we got funding for Fort Ross Road, which is the main access road to 4 communities here on the coast. And that project, that grant project, really pulled our communities together. It really got everybody talking to each other, and how, yes, our roads projects, private roads projects didn't get funded by CAL FIRE, but people are very excited about Fort Ross Road. It's a major access road. I mean, it's only a 1-lane, 9.3 mile road, but it connects our communities. And so, we've had some bumps with the vegetation management grant, but on a whole, it is working for us. It has done what we started, which is getting all the communities to talk to each other. It got us collaborating. It got us looking at, where do we go next? What's our next priority? It worked in a way that that would have been hard on our own, doing that kind of outreach. So I know that there have been some, like I said, there have been some bumps in the road. There have been some challenges, but this grant worked for us and our community on multiple levels. And for that, I just really want to point that out, because I know I've heard of different challenges out there and things that people are dealing with, but for us, this grant worked. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Marshall Tuberville is an incredible resource, and I think he's one of many regional fire battalion chiefs. He's not the only one out there, but he's one of the more active ones. So I think we might need to engage with some more. Dee?
Yeah, I really agree with Judy, especially on what we have learned and what did we benefit from for this process. So yes, we can critique, the process, and we should continue to do that. But we do need to acknowledge that a lot of communities did come together and work more closely, and I think develop relationships that will continue on. We do have to realize that there's, the time is of the essence. So while we did learn that, and that we got that, and that's a benefit, and I so appreciate that, and that's good to do. You also need to look forward on how we can move at a pace and scale that really accomplishes our long-term goals. Certainly these grants and such are great for short-term, one-off situations. We are in need of moving for the 100 years. We really need to do that. So I don't want to have people be discouraged by the things that I'm bringing up. It should not be discouraging. It should be food for thought, so that we continue what we have learned and work more closely together, not feel more divided. There's no blame. There's work to do, and that's what is our job, since no one else seems to be looking at that larger focus. When I talked to Adriana last week at our monthly operations meeting, I suggested, let's look at all the great projects that didn't get funded or even did get funded. And I know this is one of Carleone's goals. Let's map those and then see, well, where are the spaces in between those grants? How can we weave all of that together eventually? If you don't think like that and map that out, we're not going to move as fast as we can. And so I think that's one of the things that I got out of it was, let's look at these places, these fabulous places where communities have grown in relationships, and some projects were, like the one that Towles was working on was 72,000 acres. We need to keep growing that. But our little group gets $15,000 a year for Adriana to, keep us, oiled. And we deserve, the forests and the people that live in them and have died in them deserve more from our governments. I really can't imagine how that would be a negative response. You know? And I think that I'd like to hear reactions on getting Linda Hopkins to a meeting. I think venting is one of the first things you do at meetings, and then you get down to work. But you have to develop the relationships, and we have to figure out how we can work at a larger scale faster. Thank you.
I think we all know the work needs to happen, and we all know how it should happen most effectively. So we are in a bit of a frustration point here, countywide. Anybody else want to chime in on this?
Again, that's what the CWPP is supposed to do. That's what the CWPP is supposed to do.
And where do we stand?
There's
on that?
nothing that Dee is saying that isn't supposed to be part of the discussion of the CWPP.
And
But
are you
if
properly
people don't
funded?
participate in that process, what's going to happen? It's a GIGO situation. So we're drafting right now at this point. We're very limited on funding for that project. So we would have to figure out, but that's what the risk analysis that we did for that with Mark Duckman, and is just about to go in. So that gives us a really good indication of areas at highest risk based on a multitude of factors. That'll go public, I think, at the end of the week for folks to look at. And if we could get everybody to sit in the same room at the same time who are really interested in doing projects, I think that would be great. Exactly what the mechanism will be for that, I'm not sure. Would have to figure that out because it's that's going to have to happen. But we're also finalizing the priority assessment tool for the CWPP at this point. I got some great input on that from several folks, including CAL FIRE and Jason from the RCD pinged in. And I think that that'll really help sort of sharpen our mind on grant projects and an overall prioritization thereof. But if I don't get data in to the CWPP, then they're not in there. It's, so that's what the CWPP process is supposed to be about. And it's clear that we need to have a focused group of people who are interested in grant funding for projects come together in some forum to discuss projects and how to move them forward in collaboration and cooperation. So I think that's a great idea. Let's do it. I don't know exactly what the mechanism will be, but happy to discuss that.
Perfect timing on coming through with the county CWPP. I'm glad to hear that. Ellie?
Yeah, I'm appreciate that reminder, Caroleon, and I'm not sure why there hasn't been more of a sort of a groundswell towards helping you with that. And I've had a question in the back of my mind for months and months, and that is, what is it that Marin's doing with their wildfire prevention authority that we could learn to do? Because it is a structure and a mechanism, and it's funded, and they do bring together the the environmental community with the county and all of the other agencies, and the process is actually seems more streamlined than what we have. We're much more scattered and disorganized, and I don't know why. I don't have the background in what's Marin's doing or what is happening in Sonoma. But if anybody has any thoughts on that, I would really love to know. And I also agree with you that lacking that, Dee, we do need to get together with our supervisors and have an airing out and take those risks, speak our mind, because otherwise we're not going to make any forward progress in getting ourselves coordinated. So I'm with you there, Dee.
Steven?
The Marin Wildfire Authority is a really great model, and they're doing a lot of good work, and that is being, how do we set that up? One of the issues that we're dealing with in Sonoma County is that in Marin, they have, I think, 5 fire agencies. We're down to like 29 or some ridiculously large number. So it's very difficult to get all of the fire community together into one place because there are just so many fire agencies, and there's a lot of work going on collaboration of the fire agencies in the county, of the local fire districts. But it's a very difficult and slow process. But that has always been a difficult thing in Sonoma County, is just the sheer number of fire districts that we have. And it's, you know, when you have that many fire districts, nobody has enough money, nobody has enough staff. And Steve, go ahead.
Okay, so Marin has 19 fire districts, and we were able to get 17 of them on board to do this. And some of that was done partly, we have a tax credit that Marin Institute of Quarter Cent sales tax to fund the Marin Wildfire Protection Agency. That has a board of supervisors that was set up by the county supervisors, including people from Fire Safe Marin and a bunch of other stuff, and representatives from those fire agencies, 2 of which aren't actually participating in this whole thing, which is kind of funny. We can't get everybody on board, but we're trying. And then and it is herding cats. And one of the ways Marin did this, and I don't know that there's an analogous structure in Sonoma County for this, but one of the ways that Marin did this from the very get-go is they set up the Marin, once they figured out they had some money, they set up the Marin Conservation League to sort of buffer this. And the Marin Conservation League operates a little bit like we operate. It's volunteer people. They get together on a regular basis. They've got some people who think strategically about these things. So before they even started with putting the wildfire prevention, putting the funds in action, they started by inviting every environmental and concerned group they could find to the table, including people who are concerned about bees. They had the California Native Plant Society. They had all these various different groups that might say, hey, wait a minute, what about us? You know what I mean? And one of the things that didn't happen in Marin, probably should happen in Marin County, is you're going to need to get the tribes, and you're going to need some folks like Arthur and other people who understand archaeology and history into this whole process as well. And they got everybody together to sit down and say, what is the focus? And now, of course, so that's sort of a big picture. And if you want more on how this works, we could get David Lewis on this call. He's my county director. He's more involved in the political stuff than I am. I tend to be more of a boots on the ground, head in the hole kind of thing. I really tend to focus a little bit on my stuff. So I apologize if I'm not as good at this stuff as a lot of people, Kim, Jason, some of you other guys, Dee, that are thinking more strategically. I'm not necessarily a big picture guy. But they had some big picture thinkers that looked at this and planned it out strategically. Now, Marin, I got to say, it's kind of ironic to hear Sonoma saying that we're not as together as Marin is, because Marin has been playing catch up to Sonoma in a lot of ways. One is the fire agencies themselves got way out ahead of this whole thing with a number of different things, and they were already moving apart when we decided to try and corral them in together. I think Sonoma's in some ways in better shape. They had some good leadership, in my humble opinion, and again, I'm not so great on these things. They had what appeared to me to be good leadership from their board of supervisors, and they had 1 or 2 county fire marshals that really did step up and tried to talk. They had good internal communication among their fire agencies, and Cara Leone knows far more about it. And if she says I'm full of shit, that's fine. She's right. Listen to Cara Leone, don't listen to me. But I'm just sharing a perspective. So this could be done in Sonoma County. We lack some critical infrastructure pieces. We could probably find some other ways to make that work. But I think what we need is one, we need money. We need a standard set of money that's gonna not disappear next year or the year after that. We need to have some way to get folks to work together. We need to have a little bit of regulatory teeth. That's mostly through the fire departments. It's already in place. And then you need a coordinating agency that can look at the picture from a bigger perspective. And I don't mean to lambast anybody here, but it's too easy when you work in your own little train to railroad things along that road. I think what we're looking at in CAL FIRE and how they're managing their grants sort of speaks to that a little bit. And again, I'm not trying to be critical. We do the same thing at Cooperative Extension. One of the ways when we're evaluating grants, if they're coming from us in some way, shape, or form, is like, how does this further our mission? And CAL FIRE is probably looking at it the same way, which is why they count on having things where people were already moving with. They're looking at how do we blow our own horn using the money that's here. We want to help the community, but we also want to make ourselves look good when we're doing it. So it's got to have deep background with CAL FIRE so we can claim we were there from the beginning. You show up with a new project that's really cool, has nothing to do with CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE is not likely to fund it. Imagine that. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I can see where this goes with that. That's fine, but it's a little bit of the problem when we're trying to get a lot of different people to play nice in the pool together. So that's what the Marine Conservation League functions. They have something called it's the ESP, which stands ecologically sustainability and it's looking at fire from a much larger perspective. And their direction to the master gardeners, one of the key players is, okay, we have got fire guys, we have plant guys, and we need them to talk to each other. The master gardeners are the plant guys, the fire department are the fire guys, and they were not seeing eye to eye when it came to how do we talk about this in the future. And all the ecological communities had criticism from both sides. I'm talking too much, I know, I'll shut up. But they basically said, you need to look at the bigger ecosystem picture and paint this in a way that will include your environmental, and we could even say potentially tribal communities in line with all this, because you're missing a bunch of the concerned people that are out there just talking your two languages. You're not speaking to the biggest group. Okay, I've said too much. Thank you for listening to me.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. That was great. I mean, yeah, we need a tax initiative. It's good to know we're not so far behind Marin. I think, some sort of funding to help manage these conversations would go a long way. We are blazing through our time here. I think I had Kim up next, and then Ellie, and then Brooke.
Thanks, Jason. I think we should not get too strung out about comparing us to Marin, because we have very, very different dynamics. Marin has 75% of its land protected by federal or that's a huge factor when and I mentioned this really early on in this meeting, that Ann Krelock is responsible for helping the Wildfire Protection Authority basically establish itself and define the priorities. And I had a great meeting with her about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, just to understand exactly what they're trying to accomplish. And I think it'd be great to get her to give us a little feedback on what they're trying to accomplish. It's very distinct. They are really trying to go after low-hanging fruit with the lands that are federally or state protected and work from there. She says their board was not very tuned into the impact or this CEQA responsibilities and liability factor as they were designing their program. So that's kind of becoming a much more prevalent issue there. So I think we work through this stuff. We have a lot of resources that are coming to the county, but I think one of the things that Stephen said was really essential is that we have to make this sustainable. So let's not get too far ahead of the cart when we're designing these things and getting the feedback. We're getting the funding, that's positive funding that's coming to the county. And so I think our real challenge is to be sure that we do this in a way that's sustainable, so that when the funding starts to diminish, we have good systems in place to continue the work on, in a way that's more sustainable, so that our vegetation management protocols are really clearly designed out, and they're not just focusing on backyard maintenance, but looking at larger landscapes on how to protect these ridge tops. And so I've been very impressed with Ben Nichols' perspective as I was going out with Robert to some of these communities that submitted proposals that just didn't have the right impact on a large scale. They were protecting backyards rather than these very strategic points where communities were vulnerable to large catastrophic events. So those perspectives are really valuable. Furthermore, I think it's really important to kind of take it all into context with the balance of healthy forests based after 50 years to 100 years of suppression. We're really not going to resolve this overnight. We can't be too concerned about flipping the switch and making it right in a short period of time. We have to do it right over a sustained period of time so that we're all on the same trajectory, and we're working towards an ideal balance of ecology, forest resources, and our human resources. So I just wanted to kind of share that perspective.
Very good. Brooke, did you want to follow?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, and I think Kim mentioned this before, it sounds like we should have Ann or someone from Marin maybe do a presentation. Maybe it's not an exact fit for Sonoma County, but it'll definitely create ideas and I'm sure conversation from that. So maybe we have them do a brown bag presentation. I think it would be helpful to us. And then the other comment, and this is to Caroleon, is, and I'm not all that familiar with the CWPP. I know I've input some information to the online mapping system and I've tried to provide some input. But I know when Judy and I and others sat down and we tried to figure out the needs for our region, the Sonoma coast, we kind of sat down and we tried to delineate that geographic scope of what is our region, where the region has similar problems, similar veg types. And I'm wondering if in the CWPP, are you breaking the county into different regions where then they can do kind of strategic planning and then get those communities working together because they have similar topography, forest stands, the similar problems, so that then we can have these larger projects that would maybe rank higher on these applications.
So the geographic divisions that we're using for the countywide are the supervisory districts. And that is a change from the 2016, which used the CAL FIRE units. And the reason that we changed that is that the CAL FIRE units are much less representative of similar ecotypes. Battalion 1410, for example, goes from Bodega Bay to the slopes of Mount Santa Elena, which is across the middle of the county. So just as a unit of division, it just didn't work that well. The supervisory districts are closer. And from a GIS perspective, all of the data is already separated out by those. So it was just an easy pick. Within those areas, the risk analysis data and all that stuff will apply to all of them, and you can pull out the pieces that you want to use for your specific area. If you wanted to do a specific planning unit for a region within one of the supervisory districts, you could certainly do that and create your own larger CWPP. The one does exist for Fort Ross, but the boundaries stop at the Fort Ross VFD response area, which is already a very large area. So I think time will tell if we really need to do that or not. And that will kind of be up to the community. Can you pull people together and do the process? And if you can, that might be helpful. But I think that once we get the CWPP in shape, I think that it's that's when we'll see, does this structure, this geographic structure, work for all the communities in the county? Some people are going to get funded and some people aren't going to get funded. And at the end of the day, what we're going to have, unless this changes through review and the steering committee and the agencies and everybody who we're having review the CWPP before it's finalized, the ranking tool gives you a number, which are going to be based on a variety of different factors, including a variety of different factors. And it's a number. So we're not really ranking projects exactly, we're giving them a number, which I think might make it a little easier. It's listed in the CWPP. And yeah. But we can do, as we move closer, I think Esther and I, it would make sense to have Esther, who's our contractor for this, kind of do a run through of the draft, which we should have time to do. We were going, ostensibly would be doing our meetings in November. We've decided to postpone those to the new year because of fire season. Because if we try to do meetings in the middle of fire season, it's just not going to work out well because the agencies won't be here and a variety of factors come into play. But that will give us some more time to kick stuff around with everybody before the official review meetings come out.
Okay, I think with that, we've run out of time for this very poignant conversation. We'll figure out what's the best next steps to continue it. I don't want to miss out on including our new participant here, Tia Maria. We didn't have a chance to check in with you. And then after that, I'd like to pass it back to Adriana to hit the next top items on our itinerary.
Thanks, Jason. Thea Maria Carlson here from Monan's Rill. I think the biggest update we have is we're going to be having an oak mapping event on October 3rd to invite people to help us find which oak trees are going to have good acorns for oak woodland restoration after our post wildfire salvage logging. So yeah, I'll send an email with the announcement. Should be ready soon. Otherwise, we're just keeping going with wildfire recovery.
Thank God for the resiliency of oaks out there. They're coming back strong, where there's not a solid French broom understory, that is. Okay, and now, Adriana, where are we on our agenda?
Thanks, Jason. I will put up the agenda on the screen and just go through some of these points to wrap up our meeting. Okay, so just a steering committee report, real quick. We met on Monday, as we do pretty much every month, to talk about our business. And we talked a lot about the same things that we've been discussing today. We also talked about the steering committee itself and how we would love to grow the steering committees. It's a really small commitment of just like meeting with us once a month to put together the agenda and sort of make sure that we're carrying issues over from meeting to meeting. So if you're interested in kind of shaping these conversations and the work of the working group, please get in touch with me and see, ask what it means to be on the committee, and I'll tell you more about it. And when we meet, that would be wonderful. Then item 4 is the county CWPP update. Thank you, Caroline, for telling us more about where the CWPP is at and what it means to all of us in terms of capturing our projects and getting it documented. And I just want to thank you and Robert and anyone else who might be here, BC, anyone from the county who is here today to participate in our conversation. I just want to kind of say that your presence and ongoing involvement in this group is super important to us. As we're all sort of processing like funding and strategies, it's really essential that reps from the county be here, and we just really appreciate you guys being committed to us. So thank you for that. And yeah, Caroline, please let us know what next steps we can take to input into the CWPP, if that's still available to us, or how you'd like us to do it. You can just send an email to the listserv. Awesome. And then next we have that just these are some items from last month that because of my move and how busy I've been, I haven't been able to follow up with individuals, but last month people kind of volunteered themselves to help with this ag mixer, which I still think is gonna be a great idea. also I was really glad to hear Judy mention it in terms of like, you know, she's trying to engage her vineyard neighbors and on the Coast Ridge and yeah, so just keeping us talking about how we're reaching out and engaging ag is great in our updates. So I'm going to reach out to you guys to help schedule that event.
Everybody got.
I also love the addition of having Ian.
And Jason, I think Adriana's having connectivity issues.
I think so too. I heard her leaving off with the idea of inviting Ann Krelock, which I think is a great idea.
Can you guys hear me now?
All right, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Yes, so I want to add on Ann Krelock, and maybe, you know, I'll see if she can come next month, because that would be just really good cohesion for our conversation. Whereas these are all important, but less timely. Anyway, so I'll keep working with people on organizing these. And just a shout out for events coming up. So last weekend, we had a few folks go over to the Dirksons to look at the effects of the fire and on their property. I heard that was a good time. I'm glad people were able to get out there. And then in a couple weekends, please mark your calendars for that event on the Jenner Headlands. That's Saturday, September 25th. If you'd like to take a tour of their shaded fuel break on the east side, on the East Ridge, you can still sign up on Eventbrite, and that's on our website. And then we just got a slew of other topics that we've been wanting to organize. So if you are inspired to make any of these happen, please get in touch.
Adriana, I just wanted to highlight the Pepperwood Preserve site visit as well.
Oh yeah.
For September 26th. I think that one is full, but they offered another one the following weekend. So be aware of that and sign up if you guys are interested. I think it's going to be a really interesting presentation.
Good, thank you, Kim. Yeah, maybe we'll ask Devin to tell us more about the new event that they're planning. Okay, great. I think that touches really quickly on everything. Our next meeting is October 21st, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of return to outreach items then. And back to you, Jason.
All right, well.
Can
Oh, sorry, Dee?
Yeah, I just want to say that we usually have had a celebration at the end of the year instead of a meeting in December. And I'm really hoping that it even could be in real time and real life hugs and stuff. But even if we can't do that, please mark it on your calendars for the third Thursday in December, because, you know, bonding and, you know, relationships and even high fives virtually is a really positive way to be productive. So I just want to shout out for that.
Yeah, maybe we can bring in our baked goods and treats like we used to do back in the day.
Oh, yeah, they were delicious.
Yeah. All right, and yeah, I just want to keep going. I want to hear about how we can mix Pepperwood's research with the Jenner Headlands research and start really diving into best practices, but we'll save it for the next one. All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah,
Great
thanks a
job.
lot, Jason. Great job. See you, folks. Great to see you.
You guys keep up the great work.